Hey everybody, I've got these goofy headphones on because I need the microphone because my computer's microphone is not working very well right now, and every time I say an S sound it just fizzes out. So anyway, I'll just wear these goofy headphones for now. I wanted to talk about, before we talk about social norms, I wanted to go back to what Mr. Davis was talking about in the previous video. He was talking about informational social influence, meaning his son was going to get on a plane, so he looked up some information, got some information, and changed his mind, changed his behavior. So that is informational social influence. Now, we didn't talk, though, about what is normative social influence, and that is, what if Mr. Davis was talking to his family and they all said, oh, I would never get on an airplane. I would never get on an airplane. Nobody's, and he just asked all these people, and they're like, nope, I wouldn't do it. The reason he's not getting on an airplane or not letting his son do it is because that's what everybody else is doing. He got no information. He didn't read a study. He didn't see 1 out of 4,000, 1 out of 7,000. What he did is he said, what's everybody else doing? I'm going to do that. That is normative social influences. And we see right here, social norms. So what are we talking about with social norms? When we look around and see what everybody else is doing, what is normal? That's why they call them norms. What is normal? And I'm going to do what everybody else is doing. So I want you to think about social norms as the water that we swim in. We don't even realize so many of these social norms occur. There was a famous study on college campuses where they looked at people who went to traditionally very liberal universities and people who went to traditionally very conservative universities, maybe religious colleges, and they wanted to see how did their opinions change over the 4 years they were at the school. And you can just guess from what we're talking about. People went to liberal universities, on average they got much more liberal as they were there. People who went to conservative universities became much more conservative. Did they choose to do that? No. Did they even realize it was happening? No. We looked around, the water that we swam in was conservative or liberal, and we changed. So I want you to start examining a lot of things that you think about when it comes to social norms. So, for instance, walking on the right side of the sidewalk. There's no law that says you need to walk on the right side of the sidewalk. And boy, when cars are coming in the opposite direction, I was in London last year, no joke, my wife probably saved my life a couple of times, where I was looking the wrong way and I almost got hit by a car. Tipping. When I was in Europe, what's the rule on tipping in this country? I don't know. Saying thank you is a norm. There's no law, there's no rule, but saying thank you is a norm. And boy, when you start thinking about all the norms that occur in your life, just all the basic things, just the grease that keeps social life working. And if we were in class, we'd be asking more about that, but I'm not going to ask about that now. So I want you to think, this kind of a summary before we move on to the next thing. Think of how a particular person might affect your behavior. Well, we saw one example last week. We saw the handsome teacher clip, and we saw that when a teacher's in the room, the behavior is totally different than when the teacher is outside of the room. Think of an activity that might alter your behavior. You're going to act a lot differently at a sporting event than you will in church. And I should just say during a sermon, because that's an activity. But then I want you to think about a setting. You could be inside of a church, a very beautiful cathedral. Even churches might be different. Imagine you're in like Notre Dame in Paris. Boy, you're awed by it. But some of these modern churches just make you want to feel comfortable. You'd be much more likely to talk. So even a building or a room that you're in can change your behavior. Just think in general how all the expectations and norms that flood your life might change your behavior. And boy, this would be a chance in class where I'd have you talk to the person sitting next to you at your table, and we'd have a great conversation about all of the effects of your behavior. But we can't do that right now. I'm going to do this a little bit differently. I'm going to skip this and I'm going to go right to here. So this is the Stanley Milgram shock generator. And Stanley Milgram ran an experiment, and I want to kind of set the stage for you. So imagine that, and this will happen all the time. You're in college, and what's going to happen is you'll walk through the psychology building or the social science building, and you'll say, we need somebody for a study, rip this off, call this number, and we'll pay you $50 to be a part of the study. So you call the number, and you're like, yeah, that sounds cool. So you walk in the room, they say, I want you to meet this middle-aged man. We're going to test him for memory. We're going to do memory tests. And if he missed a question, you're going to deliver a shock. And the old man says, well, I have a heart condition, so these aren't going to do any damage, are they? And they say, no, don't worry, it's going to be fine. So then you sit at this machine, And the guy goes into the other room. You can hear him through the wall, but you can't see him. And you start delivering the quiz, and you deliver the quiz, and he misses a question, and you go over here and you go, there's a slight shock. And you say, wrong. Okay, it's fine. And he starts missing more and more. And once we get up here, it's, you'll hear him go, oof, like that one kind of hurt. So would you deliver a moderate shock? And some of you are thinking right now, I wouldn't do that. Some of you are thinking, sure, I would. What if we get up here and it says very strong shock, and you shock him and he goes, ah, wow, ooh, that one's tough. Let's see you get up here. Let's say during extreme shock, and we have a victim screaming in agony. Would you deliver that? So you do it on the extreme shock, and you hear the person go, ah, gosh, oh, please, please, oh, this hurts so bad. Would you keep going? And we say, of course we wouldn't. What if you get all the way up here and you ask a question, the person doesn't respond? You think, are they passed out or dead? And the experimenter says, you gotta push that button. Would you push that button knowing that maybe you're shocking a dead person? Would you do that? And all of us would say, gosh, no way. No way in heck would I do that. Well, guess what? 2/3 of some of the participants delivered the maximum 450 volts. It's a little more complex than that, but Stanley Milgram could get people to deliver 450 volts. I mean, and they didn't even have a name for it on the shock generator. It just said XXX, like don't do this. But how did he get people to deliver these shocks? Well, I have good news for you. The victim was an actor, so the person with the heart condition wasn't real, and the victim received no actual shocks. It wasn't a memory test. What they were trying to do was see, will the person who is delivering the shocks obey authority? Will they do things that they wouldn't normally do? Will they hurt somebody? Will they deliver damage? Will they cause problems because somebody is asking them to do it? And it's not quite as simple as this. It's more complex than that. But the experiment was designed to demonstrate why people obeyed authority. Milgram said during World War II there were a lot of decent people who did some terrible things. Why? And he wanted to see if people would obey authority. So it's been about 7.5 minutes. As we finish up, situational factors affected people's levels of obedience. You can get terrible people, or you can get good people to do terrible things if you put them in a bad situation. The situation is key. And now this is a perfect time to stop, and we will watch a video on that experiment.